Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get straight to the heart of the matter. Are COVID vaccines the reason why an astonishing number of young people are suddenly falling dead? Almost every third day, a video emerges that forces us to ask that rather controversial question. But it is a question that needs to be asked. Take a look at a video I'm going to show you. I'll just put that on your screens. Now, this is a Ram Leela in progress in a town in Haryana called Bhiwani. This was part of the celebrations yesterday after the Pran Pratishtha in Ayodhya. The man who's playing the role of Lord Hanuman is in the middle of his act when he suddenly collapses on stage. People initially confuse the collapse as part of the act before realizing that this is probably a heart attack. By the time he reached hospital, he was dead. Take a look.
जो कि अच्छे ढंग से बड़े ममतामयी ढंग से राम जी के चरणों में हरने वाले भक्त की लाज बचाओ, हंसी उड़ाने वालों को प्रभु चमत्कार दिखलाओ। मेरे मन के मंदिर में ये जो कि अच्छे ढंग से बड़े ममतामयी ढंग से राम जी के चरणों में
Now, you can of course argue that Harish Mehta, who has been playing Hanuman for the last 25 years, wasn't exactly young at 54. I take that. But what explains a 34-year-old soldier collapsing on a cricket field and dying of a heart attack? Lance Naik Vinod Banskar was on leave in Madhya Pradesh. He complained of a chest pain while playing cricket and was declared dead by the time he got to hospital. 34 years old, in the army, fit and active. His vitals, because he's in the army, are checked every 3 months. Now, this is exactly what had happened to a techie from Noida. Again, that techie was 34 years old. You remember this video. We had talked about this on Urban Debate. Simply collapsed on the cricket pitch. Died of a heart attack. Then let's not forget what happened in Indore, a video that had gone viral and shocked everyone. An 18-year-old in his coaching class simply sinking into his chair. The silent killer had struck again. His friends say he was a regular gymmer, someone who took great care of how he looked and how his body looked. Now, yes, we know that Indians are more vulnerable to heart disease symptoms compared to other populations. The onset of our symptoms comes 10 years before others. But 18 years and 24 years and 34 years is not the demographic we associate with heart problems. Today, 1 in every 5 heart attacks in India, ladies and gentlemen, is under the age of 40. That is a telling statistic. Now, while the trend may be rising for the last 10 years or so, we are hearing more about it post-COVID. So is it just media hype, or is there a link between the COVID vaccine and heart attacks in the young? Well, the ICMR did do a study on that very question. The study went on for a year and a half. And the study said categorically there is no link between COVID vaccines and the heart attacks that young people are facing. But not all doctors agree. Dr. K.K. Talwar is chairperson, Heart Institute at the PSRI Hospital, also former head of cardiology at AIIMS. Thank you very much. Dr. Vivek Chaturvedi, head Department of Cardiology at the Amrita Hospital. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for joining us. Dr. Talwar, what do we make of this? You know, every third day or every second day, you're hearing of young people simply collapse. They're either sinking into their chairs or collapsing on cricket fields. What do we make of it? Now, I understand what the ICMR study is saying, but is it a study that you're taking with a pinch of salt, or is it a study that you agree with, that there is no link between the COVID vaccine and these heart attacks?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. But I must, I mean, you're right that younger people we are sort of seeing more often today than probably maybe in the past. But as far as the COVID vaccine, madam, I mean, there's no scientific proof because anything to say, I mean, there is a concern that probably there may be association with this, but there is no scientific data to prove it. Any kind of a vaccine. So I say this is a more of a kind of a concern that some of us, some people are feeling, and but no proof. But I like to mention few things like younger people when they get heart attack, and medically we say that there may be some kind of a inherited arrhythmic disorders. Now, this has been seen earlier also, some football male players dying on the field, kind of a thing. So it is that maybe these some people may have it in the family, and that needs a proper kind of evaluation. And even sometime the routine autopsy may also not be sort of able to give an answer. And now there is a sort of a attempt to do molecular biopsy autopsies in these kind of cases. So what I'm trying to say is that younger people below the age of 30, when we come across mostly this may be some kind of inherited disorder, some hypertrophic cardiomyopathy kind of situation, or hypertrophic muscle, more prone to arrhythmia. And another thing sometimes happens when people who have not been doing regular exercise and then they suddenly do a sort of vigorous exercise. It's not true for these that you have mentioned, two, three people, those who person who has been playing the Hanuman role or the
Exactly.
shoulder. That's right. But we cannot rule out those kind of possibilities of rhythmic issues in those families. So I think vaccine
Okay.
to blame will be, I mean, at the moment, without scientific proof, we should not read. We should also look at the benefit which the vaccine gave. I remember I was handling the Punjab COVID program. In the police force, before vaccine, we used to see get death. When the vaccine was done, we didn't find it almost, there's no death was occurred. So I think to blame a vaccine at the moment will be a little, I mean, unless we have a scientific.
Okay, and you know, the studies are so diverse, you don't know what to believe. Because there was one study that I was reading that seemed to say that actually the vaccine has lowered the risk of heart attacks. So that is one study that I read as well online. Dr. Vivek Chaturvedi, do you agree with the ICMR study? We do not know what to believe except the fact that the ICMR, which is a fairly credible body, has come out with this study. But then, you know, there are enough and more studies that have been done across the world that seem to be suggesting a link. What do we believe?
Yeah. So, Shruti, this question is a little bit more complex than it has been made to be out to be. See, the thing is, COVID itself causes increased risk for multiple types of heart diseases, including sudden death, heart attack, and arrhythmias. Now, in India, in Delhi, you would be surprised at some point, 90% of the population sampled had antibodies to the COVID antigen, which means that many people were exposed to the COVID, symptomatic or asymptomatic. So COVID itself is spread all over in terms of exposure, and then almost everybody has got a vaccine. But to tease out these differences is very, very difficult. There is a good, very well designed study which was reported from Lancet, which was done across the world, where it did suggest that patients who had COVID and those who had vaccines versus those who did not have vaccines. So the people who had vaccines tended to have less heart problems than people who had vaccines. It's not to say that vaccines cannot cause problems, but the data is there only for the mRNA vaccines, which is the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, which was there predominantly in the Western or Caucasian hemisphere. And there it has been found that some amount of younger age group cardiomyopathies, myocarditis has been increased, but it is still in the very, very uncommon kind of label which you say as in terms of the significance of that heart disease. So COVID is definitely one big problem.
Okay.
I think in my own view, I think it is the COVID and its aftermath rather than the vaccine and its aftermath. The problem of younger
so you're making
people
a distinction there.
Yes, I am making a distinction.
You're making a distinction there very clearly, doctor. You're saying that it may not be COVID vaccines, but it could be COVID. So I think you're making a
Correct.
distinction, and
Yes.
both of you seem to suggest that you don't believe that it is COVID vaccines that are causing these sudden heart attacks that are leading to younger people simply falling dead. So we simply should just go by what the ICMR is saying. Gentlemen, I am completely out of time. I know this is a longer chat. This deserves a longer chat, and I promise you we'll come back to a longer chat. For the moment, there's a young boy gentleman who is missing from Bangalore. His parents are searching for him. I just need to put his pictures out. So I beg your, I apologize to you for this very short chat. Thank you very much, Dr. Chaturvedi, and thank you very much, Dr. Talwar, for joining us. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as I end